enjoy these videos, I forgot to literally hit the button. But it's nice to have a backup audio. So I
Yep.
realized that I didn't. I'm not going back. I'm not doing it again because I'm too lazy for that. And who cares? So when you try to tell people whom you are, like what is a Robyn, what do you
Mm.
answer to that question? Like, what do you want people to know?
I mean, I think it depends on who's asking. Um, but I tend to say I'm a trans, queer, Latinx, and a politicized theologian and adult on the autism spectrum. Um, and then if people aren't interested in my professional stuff, I just say I'm a bit of a nerd and I'm an idea farmer. I farm ideas.
An idea. I don't think anybody's ever told me that. I am an idea farmer. What is the fertilizer for that? Like, this is not what the book is about. We're going to talk about your book in a minute.
Yeah.
So I don't want to bury the lead. How do you like? What is the fertile crescent land for idea farming? And then how do you fertilize that? Like, what does that look like for you?
Well, it's relationship, it's our brains collectively thinking together. Um, the terrain is the never receding horizon of possibility. Um, the fertilizer is imagination.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, as you describe that, I'm reminded of literally the universe, which is
Mm-hmm.
ever expanding
Yep.
constantly,
Yep.
which is freaking mind blowing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, quick question I ask anybody that is ever from the Texas region. It
Yep.
is a tongue in cheek question, but it matters to me because, there's that Texans just think differently, I think. So, if what is the only, um, God ordained fast food burger? Is it In-N-Out Burger? Being that I know that you've lived in both California and Texas, or is it Whataburger?
Oh,
Unless
it's
it's
definitely Whataburger.
absolutely
Yeah.
crazy. See this, we're
Yeah.
gonna get along great. Yeah,
And in
absolutely.
fact, they have a Whataburger in Tennessee now.
Really?
Yeah.
What?
About 15 or 20 minutes from my house. And so
Hmm.
it's almost like I'm in Texas. I mean, our politics here in Tennessee are very similar to Texas. I chose the repressive politics of Tennessee over the repressive politics of Texas. And I thought I was doing a good job. But now, after all the anti trans bills, I'm now questioning my own logic.
Well, that's not just Texas, though. I feel like that's many places.
Yes.
Yeah, that's an entire, yeah, that's a whole thing. So you wrote a book called Body Becoming: A Path to Our Liberation. And even those words are a big thing. If you were to try to summarize just what becoming is, because you even say it in the book a bit, you say it's become a buzzword.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that I hear people say often is, we're human becomings,
Mm-hmm.
which I think they mean more in like a metaphysical centering way. What are you trying to get at specifically with body becoming?
Well, I'm trained as a theologian and ethicist, and I've read a lot of continental philosophy, and I'm particularly attracted to French post-war philosophy, Michel Foucault and Gilles Deleuze in particular. And uh, Deleuze and his comrade Guattari wrote a bunch of stuff together. Guattari was a French psychiatrist and psychoanalyst, and Deleuze was a philosopher. And they conceived of becoming in collaboration. And if you want to boil it down to one word that is intelligible, because most of their work is unintelligible and written in a way that is like you're trying to read mud. um but becoming is change,
Mm,
and change on both a macroscopic um way and a microscopic way. So both cellular and global or planetary.
Mm.
And what I'm trying to do in the book is talk about um, how democracy is becoming and how bodies are becoming. And when we cultivate the necessary relationship with ourself and each other, we can participate in a democracy that is the aspiration of life expressed solely in community. And that is what gets us to liberation.
So do you mean so there's things so you go a little bit further in the book. That's actually the first thing that I highlighted. You use the word generative relationality.
Yeah.
I can't say that word this late at night. Generative relationality. There we go.
Yeah.
I did it.
Yeah.
What is that? Like what does that mean? Those two words for some reason in my head. And Robyn, just real quickly, like or Dr. Robyn, I forget exactly what you told me to say. I apologize. I had to constantly stop. I love the way that you use words in a different way
Mm.
as you write than what I normally like. Words like fierce that I don't read. You started like the intro with ribosome. I can't even
Rhizome.
say the
Yeah.
word.
Yeah.
I had to ask my wife, who's a nurse, like, what the heck is somatic mean? I know that's a word that I've heard you say, my dear.
Yeah.
What is that? And she's like,
Yeah.
it just means body. I'm like, okay. Like I liked the new words first off, but
Yeah.
what does generative relationality like? How does that reshape our bodies and our becoming? And then democracy feels like you're using it in a different way than what people would hear
Yeah.
in television. So can you rip that apart a bit?
Yeah. So let's just think about the traditions that we come from. So, Christianity comes from Judaism in many
Mhm.
respects. And Jewish law talks about how Jewish law is chiefly concerned with the dignity of all people. And so Jewish law says that you should not pass over someone in need, that you should have some sort of connection. So think about people who ask for money on the street or ask for food on the street. A generative relationality would be to stop, ask them what their name is, and not just pass them by.
Mhm.
It's a question of charity versus solidarity. So a generative relationality is a relationship or a relationality that um, troubles the transactional nature of today's relationships and chooses solidarity and chooses to stop at the person on the street and um, invests in that person.
Hmm.
Um, Generative relationality is saying yes
Hmm.
and and I think we see this in many different ways um, in the world's religions, um, but we don't practice it very much in society.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, do you think that's because of the way that we're so how can I say this in a way that doesn't sound political? I don't know that I can. Do you feel like that is just inherently humans, or is that a product of capitalism, or is it a product of exceptionalism, or is it a product of just only caring about myself, like narcissism that I've just cognitively disonanced away?
You mean the transactional nature of
Yeah, where like I
relationships?
walk
Well,
past people on the thing and like, yeah, if you're not in my family, and even if maybe even if you're in my family, it's fine. All I care about is what I need for me.
yeah, I mean, I think it's a combination of whiteness.
Mm,
The a culture of whiteness disassociates ourselves from ourself and each other. So we have no lineage. And as a mixed race person, I am, conditionally white until I start talking about my family. But I have to remember that I am conscripted into whiteness, and I am conscripted into being disassociated at a cellular level. So I do think it's about whiteness. I do think it's about neoliberalism and the ways in which we have created a culture of hyper individualism. I do think it's about capitalism and the extractive nature and the exploitative nature of
Mhm.
capitalism. All of these things don't encourage generative relationality. Um, just look at how often, I mean, I know that we've been living in a pandemic for the past 2+ years, but look at how often we get together with people. How often do we share a meal with one another? I mean, I just think we need to go back to some very basic things and rituals like sharing a meal together
Mm.
and 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 recovering the generativity of just practicing ritual together. But you know, um, many folks have moved to the suburbs and choose fast food over communal food,
Which is fine if it's Whataburger, but only
which is
Whataburger.
right, which is fine if it's Whataburger, but you should also be sharing a Whataburger with a friend. And aren't their fries so good?
Especially with that gravy. I don't know what I dip it in the gravy. Maybe
Yeah.
I might be heretical. It doesn't matter.
No, that's kind of like Texas poutine.
Either way, it's good.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what it is. It's just good.
So
Not
you'll have to come to Tennessee and we'll go to Whataburger together.
That's done. I can do that. Yeah,
Yeah.
Nashville is what's that?
It's only about 8 hours.
Yeah, 8.5 hours. Yeah.
And you gain an hour when you come here. So
Oh, I thought Nashville was still. So is it 8? So you're an hour behind me?
yeah, it's 8:30 here. Nashville is Central Time. Knoxville is Eastern Time.
I thought for
Chattanooga
some
is
reason
Eastern
it
Time.
was. I thought for some reason it was Memphis. I thought it was literally the Mississippi that did it. But it's been a while since I made that drive. It's
Yeah.
been a while since I made that drive. Do you? So you use the word conscripted there, and I
Mhm.
literally only scripted, not a play on words there. One question for you today.
Okay.
And you use the word conscripted, and there's like 90 pages that separate it. So back in the beginning of the book, and I did not write down the page number, you talk about you have often been, or maybe you've felt like, or I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you said conscripted into progressive theology. And then you
Yeah.
go on to say something else, which I'd like to kind of know what that means. But then later on, and I do have the page number for this one because that's when I realized, wait, I've heard that before. You say that you have been that later you were conscripted into ideologies and supremacy cultures.
Yeah.
So when you say conscripted, what do you mean by that? And then how are those two interplaying with one another?
Well, conscripted, when I'm using it there, I'm talking about we are, or I am, or I have been woven into the fabric of progressive theology or progressive Christianity, when really it doesn't reflect my theological commitments.
Hmm.
Because I'm trans and queer, then I must be a progressive theologian. But I'm actually not. I am a liberationist, and progressivism still relies on a sort of liberal 19th century liberal agenda.
Mm-hmm. I was
And
going to say fundamentalism, just in a different way. They're the same coin.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I just, progressivism doesn't go far enough for me.
Hmm. Yeah. And then for the other part, so how are not just you, I guess, by proxy, humans are conscripted into ideologies and supremacy cultures. So is that a product of our upbringing? Is it a product of the way that we're told to identify, like to function in society? Like, how does those kind of play together?
Well, in the same way, right? Socialization, the choices that we make, what we've inherited.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so much of human life is wrapped up in mimesis, which is a Greek word that means imitation. We imitate models. My next book is on belonging and freedom using mimetic theory. And so I'm thinking a lot about models. And we're conscripted based on the models that we follow, based on the models that we imitate.
Mm.
And I don't think that we are imitating Jesus, because we have created a dumpster fire in many respects.
And mimetic theory there would be based predominantly on Girard,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
yeah.
Rene Girard.
Yeah, so you like the French, you like the other names, because I feel like one of the other philosophers that you said at the beginning, or thinkers that you said at the beginning, it felt like a French name. Maybe it
Yeah.
wasn't.
Gilles Deleuze and
Yeah,
Michel Foucault.
yeah, yeah. Do you read French?
So I used to be able to read French, but
Uh-huh.
I no longer read French.
I only read Pinot Noir, and random things on a wine bottle, but
Right.
I don't
Right.
I don't actually know what that means.
Yeah.
I just can read the word.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
yeah.
noir means night.
Does it?
Yeah.
And Pinot then is good night. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up now. I don't know what it means. I will Google it now because it's going to bother me. I won't be able to sleep until I know what it means. Um, so what is a body? And you asked that question multiple times throughout the book, because I feel like if you ask that question to, say, 50 people on the street, you're going to get some very concrete answers, some
Yeah.
very look at this answers, and you might get some other more esoteric answers. And so what is a body in the way that you're approaching it in your text?
So a body is, we are a body, but we are comprised of bodies. Together, you and I are an interpersonal body. And then together, we are connected to a larger body, which is our cultural body or our collective body or our democratic body. And we're all impacted by, it's kind of like the butterfly effect. When I pull the string here on this end, it shows up on the other side of the world.
Mm.
And we also belong to a planetary body, so it's not just, we're kind of like Russian doll sets, nested dolls, and all of us together make a huge body. But yeah, we are bodies comprised of bodies, and we are in relationship with lots of different bodies comprised of other bodies.
A Russian doll set of bodies. The mental picture of humans being housing humans, housing humans, housing humans.
Yeah.
I don't know that. Yeah, that's not a nice picture. It's quite grotesque the way that's how you meant it. I just can't stop envisioning that way. So with that thought process being in there, and I think that you're right, we are not modeling Jesus. What does that mean for the disjointedness of humanities that make up, be it church bodies, be it our religious bodies? If it doesn't happen to be church, it could be any religion, because the Bible seems to be pretty clear, that we are all collectively in this together.
Yeah.
So how do we begin to repair oneself so that our bodies can actually work in relation, so that my arm can work in relation with your legs?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great question. I mean, I feel like the repair work, and the reparative work is really vital right now. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of need for reparative and repair work, from land sovereignty and land justice to climate change.
Mm.
But we can start repairing our bodies. I mean, I started by just walking into my therapist's office and asking her, how do I have a relationship with my body? I was so disconnected and so disassociated that I was living life from my shoulders up. And I didn't know how to feel or how even to be in my body. And I had heard for a long time, don't lose yourself in the academy. And I sort of was like, well, I'm not going to lose myself. I don't even know what that means. But what I realized was, I had become a machine where I read and I wrote and I published. And all of a sudden, my materiality kind of evaporated, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I had to do a lot of repair work of just repairing the relationship to self. And I think when we start repairing the relationship to self, when we start doing the inner work, we can begin to live that out in public ways.
Mm. Mm. Yeah. So I'll go back to the metaphor you began at the beginning. So you can get lost then in things that you are naturally good at. So in your case, farming ideas,
Right.
and lose sense
Mm-hmm.
of yourself. What is the relationship of body to mind, and I guess soul, if you want to call it that as well?
Yeah, I write about this in the book where I walked into um, Dr. Edward Antonio's office and said I wanted to write on the materiality of the body, and he said, "You mean the mind?" And it wasn't until I started writing the book was he saying the body had a mind or the mind was a body. And I come to learn that every cell that is structured in our body has like a brain. So every part, like, yes, we do have a brain that is ensconced in our skull, but there are multiple minds in our body.
Mm.
DNA, cellular structures, those embody some sort of brain activity. And and yet we have perpetuated the disconnection between body and mind or body and soul. I don't know where the soul resides.
I don't know
It's
that
a
anybody could say that they do. Though
that's a question that
I am happy with that movie Soul and what they did with it. I love what they've done with those
I'm
little.
not seeing that. That's on Disney Plus, right?
Oh, I can't believe. Oh, it's amazing. So I don't want to ruin it for you, but
Don't
it's
don't
the
don't tell me. I mean,
yeah.
I want to see it.
Watch it. It's
I also want to see Turning Red.
I watched that with the family literally over the weekend.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to like it. And for some reason I can't. And I don't think it's the story. The story is actually quite good. There's something off about the animation for me. Have
Mm.
you watched the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse? Have you watched
No,
that?
no, not yet.
So that one is animated in a specific way where the frames per second are janky at the beginning, and as he gets more understanding of who he is, things begin to line up.
Ah,
It's animated in a very intentional way. Something in this Red movie was like there was something like as I watched it, I kept being bothered by just the animation, and it kept disjointing me from the story. I think
yeah,
I'm actually going to watch it again with the subtitles on so that I'm reading it instead of
yeah,
looking at it
yeah,
because I think I liked it, but I also did not like it because I
yeah,
walked away just frustrated with the show. Had
yeah.
nothing to do with the show. Um, but no, they tackle the concept of soul in that movie in a way that I've never seen.
Ah,
That made me have great thoughts and ponderations. There's a big section here where you talk about which bodies matter. Um,
mm-hmm.
and then later on, maybe 100 pages, you start rattling out at the beginning of writing this book. We've got COVID, we've got George Floyd, we've got 250 cases of people just getting murdered because they're the wrong skin color. We've got this, that, and the other. Where do we go with that? Because a lot of people talk and a lot of people talk, and a lot of people continue to get murdered and be devalued. So, what do we do with that?
Well, I, racism originated as white on white violence, and we're seeing that as a power struggle between Russia and Ukraine,
Mm.
and it's been exported or imported into the United States as white violence against indigenous people, white violence against people of color, white structural violence, in the form of police brutality against black and brown folks. So I think that in large part, white folks and white passing folks need to do some work around what they've inherited, what we've inherited, and how we are in relationship with power,
Mm.
and how do we compost violence and strategies that result in violence. So we've got work to do.
Yeah. Do you mean compost in that way, in let it help it to continue to break down and turn it into fertile soil that we can actually do something with? Is that what you mean by compost? Want to make sure I'm
Yep.
not
Yep.
misunderstanding. Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Towards dead center of the book. Yeah, maybe literally dead center. You have an Octavia Butler quote, and I'm embarrassed to say I've never read anything by Octavia Butler, but I liked the spin that you and your partner have on it, and I'd like you
Mm-hmm.
to rip it apart a bit. So I'm going to read the original quote, and
Yep.
then I'll read what you have as well. So you say, or she says, everything you touch, you change. Everything you change changes you. The only lasting truth is change. God is change, which you then, or your partner then, riffs on and says, all that you touch, you move. All that you move moves you. The only lasting truth is movement. God is movement.
Mm-hmm.
What, for those that have not read the book, which will be most of the people listening, what
Yep.
does that mean? Like God is like movement. Like what? What does that mean?
I think it could mean that God is becoming, and that we are participating in that becoming. I think we have to remember that God became human so that humans could become divine. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that's the tradition. It's called
Mm-hmm.
theosis. And we've forgotten that. And, or some of the traditions that have perfection as a goal. We may never achieve it, but we should always strive to be perfected in Christ. That's about becoming. And I don't mean perfectionism because that's wrapped up in white supremacy,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean a kind of becoming in a perfected state where we are aligned with the logic of liberation and movement. um Movement and becoming, movement and change, those are all kind of wrapped up together for me in a web that sort of exposes how deeply interconnected all things are.
Mm. Mm. Yeah. What are bodies becoming liberated from?
Well, just when I think about our current situation, I think about the structural inequities that impact marginalized bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that the logic of liberation creates conditions for a kind of radical freedom and in the abolition of these systems. And we have to remember that abolition is about life affirming systems. And so it's not just shutting down prisons, it's creating systems where there's flourishing,
Mm.
opportunity for flourishing.
Mm.
And so bodies have a chance. Marginalized bodies have a fighting chance to flourish. And I think if we're not concerned with the positivity of liberation, like if we're only concerned with how to eradicate oppression, this is why I talk about composting supremacy culture instead of dismantling supremacy culture, because the work of abolition is creating conditions for flourishing, not just not just shutting down prisons or shutting down surveillance structures, right? It's creating opportunity. And I think that's what marginalized bodies need. They need opportunity to survive, and they need opportunities to flourish. And without the right kinds of systems in place, things like structural inequity and structural iniquity will continue to marginalize and accelerate oppression.
Mm. Is the role of building the compost bin or supervising putting things into that, is that a role of governmental systems, or is that the role for the church? Is it a mix of both? And depending on that answer, actually, it doesn't really matter the answer. How do we hold those that are supervising what goes into the compost bin? Because I have one outside.
Mm-hmm.
And if I live right outside the Blue Ridge Parkway, and if you put the wrong thing in there, bears will be in my backyard.
Mm-hmm.
And so composting is wonderful. It can also be destructive
Mm-hmm.
if done incorrectly. It can also be harmful. I can have entirely too much nitrogen in there and literally burn everything that I'm trying to grow because I put too much stuff in here. So whose role is it to supervise that and shepherd that?
Well, this is where relationships really make a difference. I don't know that we need a supervisor, but we need community to to help steward the compost bin.
Mm.
Um, we, I mean, bad theology kills, and everything is theological, and all theology is ethics. So, the legislature is making theological decisions in their policy making. So, it is the government's responsibility to steward um, parts of the compost bin. And it's also the church's responsibility, and it's also the community's responsibility. I mean, if we're going to survive this world, which, you know, is really sort of spinning off the rails,
Hmm.
it's going to require us all together to learn how to dance together. And we just aren't dancing well together.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. I don't remember you tackling this role specifically in your book, but I'm curious your input. Um, I don't believe that you have children from what I've read, but I do. How do I be mindful in the way that I approach my children's identity? I don't mean sexual, I don't mean gender, I don't mean religious. I just mean their core, what my pastor would call their soul child, like what their essence.
Uh-huh.
How do I, or how would you say, is a good way to approach parenting in a way that fosters an ability for the youth that are under our purvey to be in a healthier place as they enter into adulthood and
Yeah.
not have to struggle so much with becoming? And maybe I'm not asking that question right. I hope that what I'm trying to ask is coming across. If not, I'll try to restate it.
Well, I mean, I think those of us with children need to trust our children.
Mm.
And I think we've relied on a parenting framework that puts parents as the expert and children as the learner or the inexpert. And really nobody's an expert, because what kids are growing up today with, I did not have to face when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So that doesn't make me an expert on our current system. And so, figuring out how to trust our kids, and then stewarding connection, and having hard conversations, and, socializing our kids um, in ways that help them make better decisions. The world is no longer black and white.
It honestly never
It
was.
never was, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It was
But
just highly edited.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Highly edited. No. Yeah. The reason being is I am so fearful, not as a parent, but as a human, that somehow I'm so terrified that I'm making it worse. And not just me, like my generation, because I feel like people my age, and I think we're in similar age, like I'm just so mad that it seems like every 7 years things seem to fall apart. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to not have that bleed in
Yeah.
to relationships. But he and my daughters, they don't have the underlying trauma of growing up with all of
Right.
that. So I'm just throwing it on them.
Yeah.
So I'm always terrified. So I thought it was a good question to ask,
Mm-hmm.
just because I just genuinely don't want to screw up.
Yeah.
I don't think any parents want to screw up. Um, yeah, just
But at least you
genuine.
care, right? I mean, there are a lot of parents who don't give a fuck,
Mm,
but you actually care how your kids enter the world.
yeah, yeah. Well, part of that's because they're gonna pick. They're gonna pick what nursing home they put me in later, and I want them to be
Right.
nice to me. No, no,
Right.
not really. But a little bit, but not really. So a couple existential questions before I let you go, because I like to end with a few. And this is a new question that honestly has popped up over the last few days, and so you'll be the first person that I ask this to. Um, what is the best way? I'm going to rip apart a parable of Jesus. What's the best way to identify that one, instead of rocking and rolling with the 99? And what's the best way to identify that person? And then intentionally go and find them, seek them out, bring them back to the body.
Um, I mean, I think being faithful in the small things, and few of us know how to do that because we're very attracted to the applause of life.
Mm, mm. Yeah. No, yeah. Yeah. That's nice. Yeah. When you try to wrap words around whatever God is, or the divine, or whatever that is, what is that for you?
When you pour ginger ale or champagne into a glass and you get these bubbles and then the bubbles disappear, that's a little bit like God for me. That it's there, it's effervescent. You can almost grasp it and then it's gone. It's it's an elusive it's an elusive becoming.
Mm, mm, And it tickles on the way down.
Right. Yeah.
It tickles on the way down. Um, yeah. Robyn, thank you so much
Yeah,
for your
thank
time
you.
tonight.
Thank you.
When the book is out, what, March 25th?
March 29th. March
It's
29th, but
close. It's
but
close.
some people are getting it early because wherever you buy books, people they're getting it early. So I just found out today someone received their book. So
Go
Amazon
them.
and Amazon and Bookshop and other places are releasing it early.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's good. Yeah. So I have figured out, I don't know how to do this. Yours will be the first one that I've done this with. I was reached out to by a bookseller that basically partners with local bookstores. And so people that are on the show, they can click the show notes and it will literally order a book from a local bookstore.
Oh,
Of
very
the of
cool.
just I don't remember exactly the name of it because they sent me. We're still working on how to make it work.
Yeah.
Um, but hey, for people listening, by the time this is out, I will have figured out how to make that work. I'm not the best at the internet. I work at a bank. I'm pretty good at that. I'm good with math and numbers. I'm okay with Jesus, but I'm not the best at the internet. I actually kind of abhor the internet.
Yeah.
But where do you want people to go to kind of engage in the work that you do? Point people where they should be. I don't know how to say that sentence.
Yeah. Well, when I left my faculty post in Berkeley and moved to Nashville, I launched my academic scholarship as a collaborative project dedicated to social healing. A little bit like let's follow Jesus together and try to build another possible world. And that's called the Activist Theology Project. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. And we're building a digital community. And you can go to www.atporch.com. So activisttheologyporch.com, because I think some of the best conversations happen on front porches.
Mm.
And you could connect with me there. Hopefully, we'll have some book discussions there. You can also find the link to the online book event that we're having on April 2nd. But I would say, sure you can follow me on Twitter or Instagram at iRobyn. That's the letter IROBYN. But if you want to be engaged with other people who are curious about how to build another possible world, check out our app, atporch.com.
I did not know that that existed.
Yep.
I'll check it out tonight. Yeah, I did not know that. Yeah, I'm all about communities. One of my favorite places to be is a private Facebook group. That cards on the table. I did make. I rarely post, but I read almost everything. But
Yep.
it's a place that you're not allowed to solicit, advertise. It's just a place to ask honest questions and say whatever the hell you need to say
Yep.
because you need to say it.
Yep.
It's one of my favorite places to be.
Cool.
So,
Very cool.
yeah. Thank you again for your time this evening. Very
Thank
much. I
you.
enjoyed talking with you.
Thank you. And let's do Whataburger. Come to Nashville.
Well, I'll figure it out.
All right.
Yeah, I have a couple people that I need to. I'm going to stop the recording there. I have a couple people that I need to come see in Nashville.